The smell hit me before the shock did. Stale sweat, cheap cologne, and Sharon's perfume. The one she claimed she only wore for interviews. I was still holding the takeout bag, 2 containers of pad thai steaming in my hands, when I walked past the hallway mirror and caught a glimpse of movement through the half-open bedroom door. Then I heard it. The kind of sound you don't mistake. That half-suppressed gasp. A rhythm that didn't belong in a house where I paid the mortgage. I stepped forward, quietly, not sneaking, just steady, as if my brain hadn't quite caught up with what my ears already knew. My heart wasn't racing. That would come later. Right then, I felt like I was watching a movie someone forgot to pause. The door creaked open just enough to confirm everything. Sharon, my wife of 22 years, on all fours, and the man behind her, Travis, my boss, or more accurately, my new boss, the fresh-faced, too polished, MBA-toting little prick the company brought in last quarter to restructure our division. I trained him on our systems 3 weeks ago. He asked if my wife cooked. I said she was a great cook when she had time. He laughed and said, "Maybe I'll have to come over sometime." Yeah. Real funny, Travis. I didn't say a word. I didn't yell. Didn't throw the food or punch the wall like a Lifetime movie husband. I just turned around, walked down the hall, and placed the bag gently on the kitchen counter. I remember the thud of the plastic containers landing on the granite, one of those small sounds that somehow felt deafening in a moment like that. Then I walked out into the rain. Now before I go on, let me say this. Over 97% of the folks who hear stories like mine don't hit that subscribe button. If you're one of the rare few who actually supports this kind of honesty, consider doing it. It motivates the hell out of the team behind these stories to keep digging deep and bringing them to life. Now back to the mess. Outside it was pouring. The kind of rain that soaks your collarbone even when you're standing still. I stood there under the overhang, watching the puddles grow in the cracks of the driveway. I didn't feel anything at first. Not betrayal. Not rage. Just this strange, hollow awareness that life had quietly split into before and after. The way Sharon had been acting lately. The later nights, the sudden yoga classes, the locked phone. All the signs were there. I just didn't want to be the kind of man who followed his wife around like a detective. I thought trust meant letting go of suspicion. I didn't realize it meant leaving yourself wide open. What killed me wasn't the affair. Not even that it was with someone younger, someone smug. It was that it was him. That she didn't just cheat on me. She humiliated me professionally and personally, in one single motion. It wasn't a stab in the back. It was a goddamn guillotine drop. And the worst part? I knew they wouldn't even feel sorry. People like Travis don't feel sorry. People like Sharon find ways to make you the villain. I could already hear her voice in my head. You were never home. We drifted. I needed connection. Blah blah blah. I stood out there, drenched, and started mentally going through my calendar. When had this started? Had Travis flirted at the company dinner? Had Sharon changed the sheets the night I was working late at the plant? Had they laughed about me when I wasn't around? It didn't matter. What mattered was that now I was free. Not emotionally. Not yet. That would take time. But free from the illusion that everything was fine. Free from the role I'd been playing. The loyal husband, the good employee, the man who endures. No more enduring. I didn't go back in for almost 30 minutes. I let them stew, let the tension rot in the walls while I sat in the car with the engine off, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked old, tired, used, like a man who had spent too long giving everyone else the benefit of the doubt. But beneath that, there was something else. Something cold and deliberate starting to wake up. I smiled at myself, just slightly. Then I stepped back out into the rain, walked toward my own front door, and started rewriting the rules. I walked back into the house like it was a job site inspection. Slow, deliberate, clipboard-in-hand energy, minus the clipboard. The moment the door clicked behind me, I could hear the shuffling. The frantic, guilty kind. Hushed whispers. Drawers slamming. A belt buckle jingling in panic. Good. I turned the corner into the hallway and there they were. Sharon in an oversized hoodie that wasn't hers. Hair a mess. Mascara half melted. Travis, at 6:14 the next morning, I was already at my kitchen table, laptop open, poring over the company's digital HR manual like it was scripture. My coffee had gone cold twice. I hadn't eaten. I didn't need food. I needed facts. Ammunition. You see, heartbreak is messy. It scrambles your head, makes you want to scream at walls and throw plates. But betrayal? Betrayal focuses you, sharpening every thought into a blade. I wasn't interested in begging Sharon for answers or confronting Travis like some jealous teenager. That would have satisfied them. I wanted consequences. Paper trail consequences. Career-ending consequences. And somewhere, I knew the company had handed me the weapon years ago. I just had to find it again. Back when I was in my old department, compliance and risk, I helped write parts of the updated employee code of conduct. Nothing fancy. Just the kind of dry language no one ever reads unless they're already in trouble. But I remembered a line buried deep in there about supervisory relationships. I helped revise it during the last audit from legal, so it stuck with me. Any romantic or sexual relationship between an employee and their direct or indirect supervisor must be disclosed to human resources immediately. Failure to do so may result in termination of employment. Relationships that occur during active evaluation periods constitute a breach of internal fiduciary trust and will be considered conflicts of interest subject to investigation. There it was. My heart didn't skip. It locked in. Because I wasn't just some random cuckold in a sad kitchen. I was a direct report under Travis. Had been since he took over the division 8 weeks ago. And I'd been flagged for promotion before that, which meant my work was still being evaluated when he arrived. In short, the smug little bastard didn't just screw my wife. He broke the very policy I used to enforce. I opened my personal contacts and scrolled until I found her. Jessica L. Former HR director turned consultant. We hadn't talked in years, but she was the one person who always knew where the landmines were buried in the corporate minefield. I texted, "Need to ask something hypothetical. Have 15 minutes. She replied within 30 seconds. "Call me. This early means it's serious." I called. Her voice hadn't changed, still sharp, still caffeinated. "Tell me." I kept it vague at first. Say an employee's new direct supervisor starts a romantic relationship with someone close to them, like, say, their spouse, while that employee's work is under review. No disclosure, no documentation, no HR notification. What would that trigger? Jessica didn't even hesitate. Termination. For the supervisor. Possibly for the spouse too if she's affiliated with the company. And if the employee was passed over for advancement during that time, that's lawsuit territory. Retaliation, conflict of interest, hostile environment, the whole circus. I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see me. And what if there's proof, like camera footage, expense reports, schedules showing overlap during evaluation windows? She chuckled, not kindly. If you've got even half that, you're not just firing back. You're setting fire to their legal firewall. You'll own them. I thanked her, hung up. Then I sat in silence for a while, listening to the refrigerator hum and the occasional bird outside, like the world hadn't just shifted under its own weight. This wasn't about getting even anymore. This was about precision, systems, policy, procedure. Travis thought he was untouchable because he wore tailored suits and smiled during staff meetings. But he'd forgotten something I never did. Everything you do in a company leaves fingerprints. Every lunch charged to a corporate card. Every change in the HR database. Every day he clocked out early and strolled into my house. I opened a spreadsheet and started a log. First entry, March 3rd. Sharon said she had a dentist appointment. Travis left work early. I worked late shift. Next entry, March 8th. Sharon posted a sunset photo on Instagram with a wine glass. Travis was working remotely that day. No meetings scheduled. I kept going, cross-referencing receipts, calendar logs, and call histories. Within an hour, I had mapped 7 days where their timelines overlapped, each during a period where Travis was overseeing my review process. This wasn't about broken hearts anymore. It was about broken policy. And in my world, that was how people got buried. Quietly, thoroughly, with documentation. By the time I closed the laptop, the rain had stopped. The clouds hadn't. But that was fine. I had no use for clear skies right now. Let the storm build. I had the claws. And they had no idea I was already turning it into a weapon. The next 3 days passed like a man preparing for trial, only I wasn't the one on the stand. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't drink myself stupid or rage at the walls. I worked, quietly, methodically, like I had when I rebuilt our deck with nothing but a warped instruction sheet and a stubborn refusal to pay contractors. And just like that deck, this wasn't about beauty, it was about weight support. The kind of structure that doesn't creak when someone walks across it. The kind that can hold a man accountable, even if he's wearing a $3,000 suit. The paper trail started in the most obvious place. Sharon's credit card. Not hers, really ours. The joint one we used only for groceries and emergencies. Though somewhere along the line, Sharon's idea of an emergency had apparently become a suite at the Wyndham and a bottle of mid-shelf champagne. I pulled up our last 6 months of statements. Took about 20 minutes to realize that Lunch with Erica and Self-Care Day had price tags that didn't match their cover stories. 5 charges to the same boutique hotel over 2 months. All on weekdays. All during business hours. One of them even on our anniversary, while I was stuck in a 10-hour shift covering for a guy who had the flu. Next came the company card statements. Travis had access to one, and I knew from experience that guys like him rarely pay out of pocket for anything unless they're legally required to. I still had access to our internal expense report system. His entries weren't locked yet. March 12th. Team building lunch, client prep. Location. Same hotel restaurant Sharon had tagged on Instagram a week earlier. March 28th. Leadership offsite prep, working lunch. But that day, according to our Outlook calendar, the office had a mandatory department meeting that Travis skipped due to a personal appointment. His personal appointment apparently was my wife. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was timestamps, receipts, evidence. And then came the real gem, the doorbell cam. I hadn't even thought about it at first. Installed it 3 years ago when a neighbor had a break-in. Mostly forgot it was there until I checked the motion log for fun. Travis had been at our front door 11 times in the last 6 weeks. 11. Always after 5 p.m. Always when I was logged in late on the internal comms or flagged as on-site in the system. The footage wasn't subtle. One night he showed up with a 6-pack. Another he was holding a duffel bag. And once, he even looked straight into the camera, smirked, and wiped something off his lip before ringing the bell. I downloaded every clip, labeled them, created a new folder on a secure drive, liabilities_2025. Then I called Jessica. She answered on the second ring. Tell me you're not calling from a company device. I'm not, I said. But I do need your eyes on something. Off the record. There was a pause. You know how dangerous this is, right? Yep. If this blows back, I was never involved. I get it. She sighed. Fine. Send it encrypted. No metadata. I'll look. I sent her a summary sheet. No images. Just timelines, overlapping data, and relevant clause citations. 20 minutes later, she texted me, 1 sentence. Jesus Christ, Rick. Then another. I can back you. Quietly. But understand something. You're about to nuke your bridges from orbit. I looked at that message for a while. Thought about what she meant. I'd worked for that company for 15 years. Climbed from temp to department lead. Covered shifts when guys bailed. Trained newbies. I bled for that place. Even when the raises were laughable and the appreciation came in the form of stale bagels during Employee Recognition Month. But now, the new boss had slept with my wife. The company had handed him power over my future. The people I trained were silent. And Sharon? She hadn't even apologized. Just silence and a few limp texts asking if we could talk like adults. No, we were done talking. I texted Jessica back. Good. I'm done building bridges for people who piss on the foundation. She didn't reply, but I saw the typing bubble flicker a few times. Then nothing. That night I printed everything. Put it all into a black binder I labeled Operations Manual, in case Sharon or anyone else snooped. Then I set the binder on the dining room table. Right where we used to eat dinner together. Right where she once told me I was too cautious for trying to plan out our future. Funny how caution turns into strategy when the house catches fire. Let it burn. I was already drawing up the blueprints for something new. And this time it would be bulletproof. The law office was in a strip mall between a vape shop and a check cashing place. A far cry from the downtown towers where big firms sipped espresso and billed by the syllable. But I wasn't looking for prestige. I wanted competence. Efficiency. Someone who wouldn't flinch when I laid the bones on the table. I'd found Robert Bob Keller through an old buddy from compliance who got royally screwed during a wrongful termination a few years back. Said Keller was rough around the edges, but brutal in the courtroom. That was fine. I didn't need charm. I needed fire. The waiting room was bleak. Gray carpet, beige chairs, magazines 2 years out of date. The secretary offered me lukewarm coffee in a styrofoam cup. I took it out of politeness, then left it untouched. Bob called me in 10 minutes later. Mid-50s, balding, Looked like he hadn't smiled since the Obama administration. He motioned for me to sit, already bored. So, walk me through it. Marital affair? Hostile workplace? What are we looking at? I handed him the short version first. The basics. Sharon. Travis. My job. The timeline. He nodded, only half listening, eyes flicking between his monitor and a half-eaten muffin on his desk. Look, Rick. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but affairs happen. Even at work. HR might slap his wrist, maybe do a quiet transfer. Courts don't usually get involved unless there's harassment or retaliation. You'd be shocked how often this happens. It's not exactly illegal to be a dirtbag. I didn't say anything, just reached down into my bag and pulled out the black binder. Set it on the table like a dealer laying down a royal flush. He raised an eyebrow. What's this? Receipts. Calendar overlaps. Expense reports. Video stills. Work logs. And this, I flipped to the back and slid out a laminated page, is a signed code of conduct. With a wet signature. Dated 4 months ago. Bob finally stopped moving. Sat forward. I tapped the paragraph in the middle of the page. He was assigned to supervise my review period. I was in line for a performance-based raise. He started sleeping with my wife while actively overseeing my evaluation. No disclosure. No recusal. No transfer. Bob whistled under his breath. Not the kind of whistle you use to compliment a car. More like the kind you let out when you realize the floor beneath you is about to collapse. And this timeline is verified? I nodded. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. This isn't infidelity. Nope. This is breach of fiduciary duty. Yup. His eyes flicked to the laminated clause again. Conflict of interest. Abuse of power. Manipulation of compensation decisions. If HR didn't act on this, they're complicit. And if they knew and still let him stay in his role. They didn't know, I said. At least not officially. Not yet. He leaned back, cracked his knuckles and chuckled softly. Well, Rick, you just wandered into the kind of case law that makes companies settle before lunch. Do you have any written denials of your raise or promotion? I reached into the folder again and pulled out the last performance review. It was signed by Travis. Strong work ethic, but lacks assertiveness, he'd written. I still remembered reading that line at the time and wondering what exactly I was supposed to be assertive about. The same review that got my raise request downgraded to a reassessment in Q4. Bob read the page 3 times. Then he looked at me differently. Like I wasn't just another guy with a bruised ego and a cheating spouse. Like I was a loaded rifle someone had just handed him with the safety off. You've been sitting on all this for how long? 6 days. And you didn't send it to HR yet? No. Good. That means we get to control the release. He opened a new file on his laptop. Here's what we're going to do. First, we preserve the evidence chain. Then we issue a demand letter. Not just to Travis, but to corporate legal. We'll allege breach of duty, conflict of interest, and manipulation of employee compensation under false pretenses. Your wife, not our problem. This is about the company. I nodded. That's exactly what I want. He paused. You sure? Because once this starts rolling, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. Your name's gonna get whispered in hallways. Some bridges may burn. I leaned forward. The only bridges I care about are the ones that let people like Travis walk over everyone else without consequences. Burn him. Bob smiled for the first time. It wasn't warm. It was satisfied. You're going to want to keep your phone close this week. Things are about to get interesting. I stood, shook his hand, and left the binder behind. Walking out to the parking lot, I felt it, the shift. Not rage, not sorrow, leverage. And I planned to use every inch of it. It hit the company's legal inbox at exactly 9:01 a.m. on a Monday, just after coffee, just before the first round of pointless stand-up meetings. The subject line was clinical, formal demand for resolution, internal conduct violation. Attached were 12 pages, drafted and reviewed by Bob Keller himself, a man who had once filed a wrongful termination suit so lethal it forced a merger to pause mid-negotiation. The allegations were simple, but stacked like cinder blocks. Breach of contract, hostile work environment, conflict of interest, retaliation, and unlawful manipulation of internal promotion pathways, each one backed with receipts, literal ones, dated, itemized, cross-referenced against company time logs and HR calendars. By 11:30 a.m., 3 department heads had forwarded the letter up the food chain. By 1 p.m., My company email was locked out. Subject: administrative leave pending review. They called it non-punitive, which is HR speak for, we have no idea how deep this hole is yet, so we're throwing you in a dark room while we panic. I wasn't worried. That was the point. Let them sweat. By Tuesday, my name wasn't showing up on internal directories. My direct reports, good guys most of them, texted to ask what the hell was going on. I gave them nothing. Better they weren't involved. They'd find out soon enough. And Travis? Radio silence. No morning memo. No team inspiration Slack message. No spontaneous donuts in the break room. Word was he'd called in sick. Smart. It was only a matter of time before the internal interviews started. Before HR realized the timestamps didn't lie, and the code of conduct they all signed wasn't decorative. And when it all finally pointed back to him, as it inevitably would, he'd realized this wasn't some emotional outburst. It was a firing squad with paperwork. Meanwhile, Sharon finally broke her own silence. Not a call, of course. That would have taken courage. She sent a text. Just one. Please don't do this. We can talk. It doesn't have to get worse. I stared at it for a while. Thought about responding with a paragraph. Maybe even a quote from her own wedding vows. But no. That's what people like her count on: dialogue. An opening. A thread to pull you back into some conversation where guilt is diluted, where blame is negotiated, where the word mistake gets passed around like a tissue box. So I didn't respond with words. I responded with a picture. A screenshot, taken directly from my doorbell cam. Travis, shirtless, in my kitchen, reaching into the fridge, holding a can of my damn root beer like he paid for it. Timestamped 8:42 p.m. 2 weeks before the review meeting he postponed due to scheduling conflicts. I sent it without a caption. She saw it. Read it. No reply. I imagined her sitting wherever she was. Alone. Maybe not. Staring at the image and realizing there was no spin left. No way to undo the trajectory. The company wouldn't protect her. Travis couldn't save her. And I had already left her behind. Emotionally and legally. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was pressure. And the walls were only beginning to close in. Later that evening, Bob called. You're not going to like this next part, but it's good news, he said. Hit me. They're assembling an internal response team. Compliance, legal, and HR. Which means they know they can't sweep it. But they'll try to muzzle it before it leaks. I smirked. Let them try. Also, he added, there's chatter from someone inside. Apparently Travis is not handling it well. Like, emails in all caps and conference room blow-ups. Good. Rick, they're going to offer you something soon. Package. Maybe quiet money. A gag order. It'll be low. They always start low. Don't even blink when it comes. I won't. I hung up and went back to sorting files. Not because I needed more proof. I had plenty. I was sorting them for future convenience, alphabetical by type with corresponding internal document codes. It was the kind of obsessive organization Sharon used to roll her eyes at. Why can't you just relax? She'd say. Because this is how I win, sweetheart. By Wednesday, my mailbox had a large white envelope stamped confidential. And I hadn't even started the press whisper yet. Thursday morning, I was called into a video conference. Not Zoom. This was a locked corporate platform with a generic invite subject line. Case review discussion, attendance mandatory. The kind they use when they're planning to bury you in a digital room and pretend it was a fair trial. Bob had warned me ahead of time. They'll push you, try to scare you, make you think you're risking your entire future if you keep going. Don't blink. So I didn't. When the camera clicked on, it was me in the corner tile, 3 stern faces across the screen. Corporate Counsel number 1, smug, half-Windsor tie. Corporate Counsel number 2, older, silent, wore glasses he didn't need. And someone from HR who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Probably because she already knew Travis had gone full meltdown mode on Tuesday. Something about lawyers gunning for him. And nobody warned me this job came with traps. The lead counsel opened with the usual throat clearing. Mr. Harmon, we've reviewed your allegations and the materials submitted. While some items raise internal compliance concerns, your approach here has been confrontational. I let him talk. He was just setting the stage for the real punch. Then it came. Rick, let me speak plainly, he said, folding his hands like a disappointed dad. If this goes public, it'll hurt your chances of getting rehired anywhere in this field. People talk. Employers do background checks. No one wants a lawsuit magnet. There it was. The corporate version of a loaded gun on the table. You're advising me to back down? I asked calmly. He gave a weak smile. We're suggesting you consider the long-term consequences. Quiet resolution is often the most beneficial path. I nodded slowly, like I was weighing it all. Then I said, I'll think about it. And I left the meeting. Exactly 20 minutes later, Bob sent an email with one sentence. Leak planted. ETA 48 hours. You see, Bob wasn't just a courtroom scrapper. He knew people. One in particular, a journalist named Caroline Heller who wrote for Business Ledger Weekly. She wasn't a tabloid reporter. She was worse, calm, thorough, and brutal. Her articles didn't scream. They whispered, and they stayed. By Friday morning, it was live. The headline was surgical. Senior exec under internal investigation following alleged romantic relationship with direct report spouse. The article never mentioned me by name. It didn't have to. It described Travis, his background, the department, the sudden administrative leave, the policy clause buried in the 2022 ethics revision. It even included an anonymous quote from an internal source, confirming that HR was not informed of the relationship prior to the evaluation period. The image they used was a cropped photo from a corporate banquet, the kind of shot where everyone looked stiff but Travis, front and center, beamed like he was the next CEO in waiting. By lunchtime, it had spread to 2 finance forums and 1 industry gossip board. I got a text from an old colleague I hadn't heard from in years. Holy SHT. Is that your Travis? I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Travis, on the other hand, was drowning. Sources said he locked his office door, called legal 4 times, tried to deny it, then pivoted to claiming it was a consensual, private matter unrelated to work performance. Except the receipts disagreed. So did the hotel logs and the time-stamped doorbell cam. HR launched a formal inquiry by Friday evening. Third-party review initiated. Corporate's PR team issued the most anemic statement in history. We are aware of the article and are taking it seriously. At this time, we have no further comment. Translation, we're panicking, and we're trying not to breathe too loud while we check if the building's still on fire. Sharon didn't text, but her sister did. I think you broke her. I stared at that one for a minute, then deleted it, because this wasn't about breaking people. It was about breaking systems. Ones that protected smug little men like Travis while grinding down guys like me. Loyal, quiet, and disposable. Not anymore. By sunset, my inbox pinged. New message. Subject line. Proposal for resolution discussion. I didn't open it. Not yet. I had a beach chair, a bottle of bourbon, and a front row seat to the implosion. And this show? This was just the second act. It arrived just after noon on a Saturday, because nothing says corporate panic like trying to make a mess disappear while the rest of the world's at brunch. The email's subject line tried its best to sound neutral, almost friendly. Resolution discussion proposal. No mention of litigation. No hint of blame. Just vague professionalism. The corporate equivalent of a hand extended with fingers crossed behind its back. Bob and I read it together, side by side in his office, while he munched on a soggy deli sandwich and I nursed a coffee that tasted like burnt pennies. His lips curled into a smirk before he even finished the second paragraph. 18 months salary, he said, reading aloud, plus one-time healthcare payout, mutual NDA, non-disparagement clause, no admission of liability on their part, internal investigation to remain confidential, and you agree to resign, effective immediately. I leaned back in the chair and let out a quiet, mirthless laugh. That's their version of a fire extinguisher, Bob said. Just trying to stop the bleeding. Yeah, I said. But they're offering me a Band-Aid for a gunshot wound. He tapped the screen. They're scared. If they were confident, they'd wait it out, let you burn out or misstep. But the article spooked them. The internal chatter's probably worse. I nodded. They think I want out. That I'll settle just to be done. Bob spun in his chair and cracked his knuckles. You want to scare them? Let's give them a number that makes their hands shake. He opened a fresh doc. Typed slow. Deliberate. To. Redacted. Resolution proposal counterterms. And then we went to work. 5 years salary. Not base pay, total compensation. Bonuses. Stock match. Benefits. Continuation of medical and retirement contributions for 3 years minimum. Formal termination of Travis, with public acknowledgement of policy violation. Not resigned for personal reasons. Not moving on to new opportunities. Terminated. Paper trail. Final. Erasure of performance review denial. Full reinstatement of eligibility. Even if I never returned, they weren't going to stain my record. No gag order. I could tell the story however I wanted, wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted. They could keep their image. I was keeping my voice. Bob hit send. Then we waited. Sunday was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Like the company was trying to collectively hold its breath until someone upstairs figured out whether to fight or fold. Monday morning came with no response. Then Monday afternoon. By 4:45 p.m., Bob's phone rang. Not mine. Always a good sign. He picked up, listened for a while, then handed me a note. They want to schedule a call. No written reply. Just a call. I shook my head. No call. Written or nothing. He smiled. I told them that. They said they'd get back to us. 10 minutes later, the second email came in. Acknowledgement of counterproposal, under review, which was code for legal just threw a chair and someone in PR is hyperventilating. That evening, I got a call from a blocked number. I let it ring. Then a voicemail, Sharon. First time I'd heard her voice in weeks. Tired. Hushed. Rick, I know everything's spinning. I know I messed up. But please don't destroy everything. You're better than this. You don't need to scorch the earth. I didn't call back. Because here's what people like Sharon never understand. I wasn't burning the earth. I was just finally building something on my terms. After watching everyone else use my back as scaffolding for theirs. They wanted to sweep me aside. I wasn't just standing in the way now. I was the wall. And the longer they took to answer, the higher my price would climb. It happened with less drama than I expected. No dramatic conference call. No gasps or slammed phones. Just an email, clean and curt. From someone with a VP title I'd never seen before. We accept the terms. Settlement enclosed. Disbursement begins within 10 business days. Attached were 3 PDFs. One confirming the monetary agreement. 5 years full comp. Down to the penny. One for the benefits extension. And one final document. Internal notice of executive separation. It didn't even say Travis's name. It just said, Executive officer has concluded employment with the company. Effective immediately. That's the corporate version of dragging a body out the back door and pretending it was never there. He was let go quietly. But I knew what that meant. His badge was disabled. His office cleared overnight. HR scrubbed his profile from the directory before lunch. The last trace of him would be a ghost chair in a conference room and a pile of gossip that no one would admit to knowing the full story of. Good. Sharon? She evaporated too. No messages. No apologies. No drunken voicemails at 2 a.m. Either someone finally convinced her to shut her mouth, or she realized I was never going to give her the stage she wanted. Either way, silence suited her. As for the company, they went into corporate damage control like it was a national emergency. HR circulated a new mandatory ethics refresher with fake smiles and pastel PowerPoints. Legal added a policy update buried deep in the intranet under interpersonal conduct. A few higher-ups sent vague all-staff emails about lessons learned and upholding our shared values. But none of it mattered to me, because by then I wasn't reading their emails. I was packing. One duffel bag. One leather carry-on I hadn't used in years. A new passport, expedited. And a list of places I talked about going for the last 2 decades and always postponed because Sharon didn't like planes, or I had to work overtime to get ahead. Turns out, the only thing I ever got ahead of was a slow-motion train wreck. I booked a one-way ticket. No forwarding address. Left the house unlocked for the realtor who would list it. No goodbye letters. No revenge speech. Just a cold, silent closure. The final wire transfer hit my account on a Wednesday morning. I checked it on my phone while sitting in the terminal at Gate 7, waiting to board. The number looked unreal. More than I'd made in any 5-year stretch of my career. More than Sharon thought I'd ever be worth. I deleted the banking app after screenshotting it. The seat next to me on the flight was empty. I stretched out, ordered a whiskey, and watched the city fade below the clouds. 30,000 feet, I finally let myself breathe. No plans. No performance reviews. No inbox. No Travis. No Sharon. Just peace and a future they couldn't touch. They spent years training me to stay silent. To be a team player. To swallow disrespect because That's just how things work. But when the moment came, I didn't yell. I documented. I calculated. And I cashed out. Let them revise their handbooks. Let them train their managers. Me? I was already gone. The sky was bruised with orange and fading gold when I pulled up to the beach, engine humming its last note before the silence took over. I parked on the edge of the lot, the same spot Sharon used to like during our early years. Back when we'd sneak out with folding chairs and cheap wine and pretend we didn't care about the future. Now, I didn't pretend.